The radio crackled with static and panic. "Base, this is Vanguard 1. We have multiple bogies. I repeat, multiple..." The transmission dissolved into white noise. In the command center, silence dropped like a stone. 5 aircraft. 5 enemy interceptors closing on a lone reconnaissance jet. No support within range. No time for authorization. On the far side of the room, near the auxiliary console where junior officers filed routine reports, Lieutenant Brynn Talbot stood perfectly still. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a regulation bun. Gray eyes fixed on the tactical display. She'd been dismissed from active flight status 6 months ago. Too cautious, they said. Too by the book. Not aggressive enough for modern combat aviation. No one looked at her now. They never did. But her father had taught her something the academy never could. In the stillness before dawn, in the cockpit of a vintage trainer, Colonel David Solis had shown her how to see beyond the instruments, how to feel the aircraft like an extension of your own body, how to fly not just with precision but with instinct. He'd been gone 3 years now, shot down over hostile territory, a hero's death, they called it. She'd spent those 3 years in the shadows, flying simulators in off hours, running combat scenarios no one else bothered with, studying engagement patterns until she could predict enemy movements like reading music. "Sir," her voice cut through the chaos. Clear, calm. "I can reach them." Major Prescott turned, irritation flashing across his weathered features. "Lieutenant, this doesn't concern..." "I can reach them in 18 minutes. The F-35 on Pad 7. It's fueled and prepped. You're grounded." His words were sharp. Final. "And even if you weren't, this requires an experienced combat pilot, not someone who got benched for hesitating in a training exercise." The room had gone quiet. Eyes on her now, but not with respect. With the kind of attention people give to someone making a scene. Someone who doesn't know their place. Brynn kept her voice level. "They'll be dead in 25 minutes. There's no one else." "Sit down, Lieutenant." Major Prescott had already turned back to the display, making calculations, running through options that didn't exist. She looked at the screen, at the small blip representing Vanguard 1, surrounded by 5 red markers converging like wolves. Inside that aircraft were 3 intelligence officers. One was Captain Rivers, who'd testified on her behalf after the training incident, who'd said she'd made the right call even when everyone else said she'd frozen. Brynn moved toward the door. Not running. Not hesitating. "Lieutenant Talbot, you are not authorized." The door closed behind her. The night air hit her face, cold and sharp. Pad 7 was 200 yards across the tarmac. The F-35 sat waiting sleek and deadly in the sodium lights. Ground crew was securing another aircraft nearby, not watching. She climbed the ladder, settled into the cockpit like coming home. Her hands moved through the startup sequence, muscle memory from 10,000 hours of practice no one knew about. The engines whined to life. Beautiful. Powerful. The tower crackled in her headset. "Unidentified aircraft on Pad 7, you are not cleared for..." "Talbot?" "Lieutenant." Shut down immediately. That is a direct order. She checked the coordinates. Vanguard 1 was 160 miles northeast. The enemy fighters were closing from multiple vectors. Negative, tower. She released the brakes. The aircraft rolled forward. "Vanguard 1 needs support. No one else is going. You will be court-martialed." "Copy that." The runway stretched ahead. She pushed the throttle forward. The world compressed into speed and light, and the gathering roar of the engines. Lift. The ground fell away. She banked northeast, climbing hard. The tactical display painted the picture clearly. 5 enemy aircraft in a loose envelope formation. They were coordinated, professional. They expected an easy kill against an unarmed reconnaissance jet. They weren't expecting her. 18 minutes. She pushed the aircraft harder, feeling it respond. Her father's voice in her memory. "Asterisk, a plane isn't a machine, Brynn. It's a conversation. Listen. Asterisk. Vanguard 1. This is Shadow 7. She kept her transmission tight.
Inbound to your position. ETA 16 minutes. Stay evasive.
A pause. Then Captain Rivers' voice, tense but controlled. Shadow 7 negative. You are not authorized for combat. I'm what you've got, Vanguard. Save your fuel and stay alive. The distance closed. 14 minutes. 12. The enemy fighters had tightened their formation, preparing for the kill. They were good, but they were following doctrine. Predictable. She wasn't. At 8 minutes out, her radar warning receiver lit up. One of the enemy fighters had detected her approach. Breaking off. Coming to intercept. Smart. Take out the support before finishing the kill. Brynn adjusted her approach vector. Let him think she was taking the direct route. Let him commit. The enemy aircraft appeared on her display. Modern. Fast. Climbing to meet her with altitude advantage. She watched his approach angle. Calculated his speed. Waited. 3 miles. 2. She cut throttle and dove. The enemy fighter screamed past above her, too committed to adjust. She rolled inverted, pulled hard, felt the F-forces crushing down, came up behind him at perfect firing position. 1 missile. Clean lock. Fox 2. The enemy aircraft exploded in a brief flower of fire and debris. Splash 1. Her voice was steady, professional. Now the others knew she was here. 4 fighters broke from their pursuit of Vanguard 1, coming for her. 4-1.
Textbook says those odds mean death.
The textbook never met her father. She climbed. Let them follow. Let them think she was running. They formed a pursuit line. Again, textbook. Efficient for the leader. Vulnerable at the rear. At 12,000 feet, she rolled and dove back through their formation. It was insane. It violated every doctrine. That's why it worked. She screamed between them, missiles arming, and fired twice in rapid succession. Both hit. 2 more aircraft tumbling from the sky. Splash 2 and 3. The remaining 2 fighters scattered, finally abandoning doctrine, finally realizing they were fighting something they didn't understand. 1 went high, 1 went low, trying to split her attention. Brynn tracked the low fighter, the one breaking for cloud cover. That's where she'd go if she wanted to reset. To gain a moment to think, she followed him into the clouds, gray nothing surrounding her. Only instruments and instinct. She could feel him ahead, sense his panic in the way he moved. He'd break left. She knew it the way she knew her own heartbeat. He broke left. She was waiting. Fox 2. Splash 4. The last fighter was running, full throttle, trying to make distance. She pursued, not rushed, not angry, just inevitable. He was good enough to know when it was over. He ejected at 5 miles out, choosing life over loyalty to the mission. She let him go. Splash 5, Vanguard 1, threat neutralized. You're clear to proceed. The silence that followed was different from the silence in the command center. This was awe. Shadow 7, Captain Rivers' voice was tight.
How did you...
Get home safe, Vanguard. Shadow 7 returning to base. The flight back felt longer. The adrenaline fading. The reality settling in. She'd violated direct orders. Stolen an aircraft. Engaged enemy fighters without authorization. The fact that she'd won wouldn't matter. Or maybe it would. She didn't know anymore. The base appeared on the horizon. Dawn was breaking. Pink and gold across the eastern sky. Her father would have loved this light. She landed. Smooth. Perfect. Taxied to the pad and shut down. Major Prescott was waiting. Colonel Ashton beside him, both faces unreadable. She climbed down. Stood at attention. Lieutenant Talbot. Colonel Ashton's voice was granite. You stole a $40 million aircraft, violated direct orders, engaged in unauthorized combat. Yes, sir. You could have been killed, could have created an international incident, could have compromised the entire mission. Yes, sir. Instead, the colonel paused. Instead, you saved 3 lives and eliminated 5 enemy fighters in solo combat, something no pilot has accomplished in active service in 20 years. She said nothing. Major Prescott looked different now. Older. Tired. I was wrong about you, Lieutenant. I thought you were hesitant. Afraid. He shook his head. You weren't afraid. You were thinking. Calculating. Waiting for the moment that mattered. Permission to speak, sir? Granted. My father taught me that every flight has a point where instinct and preparation meet. Where you stop thinking and start knowing. He called it the edge. She met Prescott's eyes. I've been preparing for 3 years. Tonight was the edge. Colonel Ashton stepped forward. Captain Rivers sends his thanks. He also submitted a formal commendation, as have I. He held out his hand. Welcome back to active flight status, Lieutenant, with immediate promotion. From now on, your call sign Shadow, because no one saw you coming. She shook his hand, felt the weight of it, the recognition, the vindication. And Lieutenant? Major Prescott's voice was quieter now. Your father would be proud. I knew him, flew with him once. He always said the best pilots were the ones who looked ordinary until the moment they weren't. The sun broke fully over the horizon, the base waking to another day. By noon, her story had spread through every ready room and briefing hall. The quiet lieutenant who nobody noticed, who'd been grounded for hesitation, who'd stolen an F-35 and destroyed 5 enemy aircraft in 20 minutes. By evening, it had reached higher command. Questions were asked, answers given, security footage reviewed. The conclusion was unanimous. Lieutenant Brynn Talbot had demonstrated exceptional judgment, extraordinary skill, and decisive action in the preservation of Allied lives. Her grounding was officially reversed, her record updated, her place secured. But more than that, she'd become legend, the shadow pilot, the one who didn't need permission or authorization, who simply did what was necessary when the moment demanded it. 3 weeks later, she returned to the briefing room, this time as an instructor, teaching advanced combat tactics to pilots twice as confident and half as prepared. She stood at the front, looking at their faces, some skeptical, some respectful, all watching. My father taught me that a pilot isn't measured by their credentials, she began. They're measured by what they do when no one's watching and everything's at stake. She paused. When you're alone in the dark and people need you, that's when you learn who you really are. She thought of that night, of the choice, of the edge where preparation met necessity. Your job isn't to be perfect, it's to be ready. Because someday, in a moment, no one can predict, you'll be the only thing standing between survival and catastrophe. And on that day, all the doubts and dismissals and second-guessing won't matter. She looked at them, saw her younger self in their eyes. On that day, you'll either be ready, or you won't, she smiled slightly. Make sure you're ready. The session ended. Students filtered out, some lingering to ask questions, to hear more about that night. She answered what she could, deflected praise, focused on technique and preparation, because the truth was simpler than they wanted. It was no magic, no secret, just thousands of hours of practice when no one was watching. Just refusal to accept that being overlooked meant being less. That evening she walked to the memorial wall where names of fallen pilots were etched in stone. Found her father's name among them, Colonel David Solis. I found the edge, Dad, she whispered, just like you said I would. The wind carried her words away. The sun set behind her. Another day ending. Another beginning somewhere else. And in ready rooms across the service, pilots told the story of Shadow. The lieutenant who nobody noticed until the moment she saved lives and changed everything. The one who proved that being underestimated is sometimes the greatest advantage. That silent preparation speaks louder than loud claims. That when the moment comes, the only thing that matters is being ready. They mocked the quiet pilot who got grounded for hesitation. Until she showed them what hesitation really was. The discipline to wait for the moment that mattered. The wisdom to prepare when others rested. The courage to act when everyone else said no. She didn't seek legend. It found her anyway. Because true excellence never asks permission. It simply rises when called. And when it does, the world has no choice but to watch. If you have enjoyed the story, tell YouTube to send you more stories like this by subscribing to this channel, liking the video, and leaving a comment.